Hey everybody, good morning. It's Anne and welcome to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied voice, Justin. At least I assume Justin is still hovering around. He didn't tell me he got dragged off by wild horses today, so, although I'm not hearing him, so you never know. Hello everybody. Not much talks today. Not much talks. Just a few talks in the chat room this morning. Jazzy Hip Booyah, I have not seen you before, or you have changed your name from someone else. If you are new, welcome. And good morning, good morning. Ashley the monk, I have not seen you in ages. Or at least I haven't seen you type in ages. Hey, Tister. Morning, morning. Yes, you made the start of the show. Yes. And afternoon to those of you who are afternoonish. And yes, I still haven't heard disembodied voice Justin. Are you there, Justin? He may have left us alone again. Ooh, Justin has left us alone again. Guys, we've gotten too predictable. We've definitely gotten too predictable. He's so complacent about leaving us alone. He knows we won't misbehave. This is bad. Alrighty. Gotta get my little to-do list all set out here. Gonna be a busy day today. Gotta finish shooting a video for the Patreon. No supervision, let chaos reign. Yep. Yes, indeedy. Are you there, Justin? It's me, Anne. Yeah. Much as I love Judy Bloom. Alrighty. When Justin leaves. It's alright. He's not that sunshiny. Sidestorm. I don't know, Coobs. You know, the minute we think about misbehaving seriously, Reaper Dave pops into the stream, and then we're all terrified, so. Bit crazy. Oh, bit crazy, in real life. More lurking. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, Ashley. Yeah, I got it. Super. Well, I'm glad you're here. It's nice to see you again. Yeah. Hello, Stephen Phillip. All right. Well, let's go and do some troll. It's Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday, and we are free to malign our time on our weekends however we like. I'm happy because I don't have to cook tonight because I cooked last night, so David gets to make me cheeseburgers and sweet potato fries tonight. To be fair, I'm the one who has to handle some of the sweet potato fry duty, but he actually cuts them up for me, and that's the most choreful part of sweet potato fries. So I still feel like I don't have to cook. Always a plus, unless I'm in the mood to cook. Cheeseburgers. Yep. Alrighty, hello troll. So we started on getting essentially the top part of Troll's arm kind of to show highlights. And what I realized is that I totally did it wrong. Too much highlights in certain areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and correct that. And then we're going to continue probably very quick. I actually have Wet Palette today. Look, Wet Palette, guys. It made an appearance again. Because Wet Palette is what we were working on with Troll. And I meant to have it yesterday. And then I totally forgot to set it up. So that was my bad.
Sorry, I'm back.
Disembodied voice Justin returns. We cannot misbehave, guys.
Now, I can hear everything you guys are saying. I will say that.
See. He's just trying to scare us, guys. I do have a little extra water on top of my Wet Palette, so I'm going to dab it off with my Kleenex here. Kind of wipe it. Get it a little drier. I might have overfilled my tray accidentally this morning. But yes, how are you doing today, Justin?
Doing fine, I think. Not a lot of sleep last night, but I'm not the one who had an issue. My fiance apparently had to tend to our little dog like 9 times, and apparently I was snoring, and she couldn't get to sleep much. So.
Yeah, I feel like I got decent sleep. My Fitbit says my sleep was questionable, but decent, but not like awesome. But I feel pretty good. So, but yeah, I had to wake up with my old dog too last night. So. I'm the light sleeper, so I'm the one who does that.
That's true. Cammy is about, we assume, 11, 10, 11, 12, in that range. So.
Right, yeah.
But she's a little dog, though, so.
Yeah, little dogs can still start to kind of go downhill around that range, though. It's not like they're youngsters.
No, they're definitely not. She is, she's not.
Alrighty, let's put some blobs of paint up here. Blobs. I need a lot of troll. Remember, we're using Dungeon Dwellers paints today. because troll is Dungeon Dweller's troll. Yay! So we're using that, and we're going to be using ogre skin. And before we were playing with some knoll pelt. We're actually using knoll pelt with a little bit of ogre skin and white in it, so I'll just put all those right next to each other on my wet palette. Make my chartreuse. Whoa, D. Clearman. It's an odd D. Clearman sighting. Since he's been busy. Bread and condiments will be able to survive dorm life.
I want to ask, Ann, how was your stream yesterday afternoon? I saw
it
that
was
it
good.
hosted you, so.
Oh, did it host me? Good.
Yeah, it gave me the log this morning. It told me it did.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, it went good. We did more green stuff. I'm doing a giant metal horse. You can see how big it is next to the rock troll. So it's a gigantic metal model. So it takes a ton of gap filling. So we've been doing all this green work on it. So yeah, people got to like ask a lot of questions about how to work with green and stuff. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. I'm almost done with the green work on the horse. It's taken like 2 or 3 video sessions just of like filling gaps and correcting mold lines. So that's the problem with big metal creatures. Remember when we used to have big metal dragons? It was just as bad.
Yeah, I mean, crazy.
Yeah, it's an insane amount of work. So, and I want to do that one to pretty high levels, so that means no shortcuts. Let's see here what I got.
What's the highest level piece you've ever shown me? Is it soldier?
Soldier or sacrifice that I did for Crystal Brush. Those are my 2 like standout, very high-end pieces, I would say. Probably my best work to date as far as it goes. They're very different, of course. They're very different styles, but sacrifice was the little bust with all the kind of arabesque freehand on it. And yeah, so that was a really good one. And then so I don't know. I haven't. I'm working on a couple busts, and I like how they're turning out, but they're not like at that level. Like doing a competition level piece takes so much time. There's so much time to devote to it for me, and so I usually like pick up like very specific models to go that way, like ones that really inspire me that I think I could do a really high-end job on. Like this one that I'm really want to start is by Galapagos. And it's a paladin bust, an elven paladin. Look at that sucker. Like, I can't wait to jump into this.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's amazing. So that'll be probably my next, like, really high-end pushing kind of thing. Because the NMM is going to be crazy, and then the freehand on the cloth is going to be crazy. Hey, Planer. Hey, Samurai Jack, thank you for the sub. Hey, Nomad Zeke. And Trash.
Do they really trash? Josh is saying that larger blister pack labels they enclose. Yeah, I guess they cover up the sculptor.
Oh okay. Yeah, well, I've noticed.
I'll let Cindy know.
Yeah, I've noticed a couple of ones that like the Rocky models say sculptor unknown, and I'm pretty sure we know who did those, unless they just didn't want to credit. But it's weird.
I thought the Rocky ones were either Jean or they were Christine.
I thought they were, some of them were, I thought the original ones were Jean. I was just weird because it was sculptor unknown. And I was like, when does that happen? When do we not give our sculptors cred? So, yeah, Zambies, isn't it?
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, never mind. I'm responding to chat. I'm sorry, I got distracted. But yeah. Yeah, the bust is really pretty. So, I don't know. Yeah, it took me a while to learn all the manufacturers that I liked too, Gurgi. It's just learning like which companies like you kind of like the style of. A lot of them are European. Some of them may do only limited edition. So you kind of have to like get on their mailing lists and kind of keep an eye peeled. You know, it's just a kind of a learning process with trying to find nice European resin. But yeah, so let's get going here. We're using bigger brush. Big brush. And we're going fast because wet palette. And that means I need one more color. What was I thinking? Oh yeah, goblin skin, because I want to do his hands. And I want to do his hands like I did his nose and his other fleshy bits. So.
What's that manufacturer of minis that does the really crazy, wild, like, I don't remember the name of it, but like, the pieces I've seen from them, they seem to sculpt phalluses everywhere.
Oh, that's Kingdom Death.
Kingdom Death. Okay.
Kingdom Death. Yep.
Those models are a fever dream meets like X-rated Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, although not all of them are like that. They do have some really nice models that are not X-rated. Um, in general, his models are just beautiful. But yeah, he does go a little far into the. They want to do the really like X-rated like dark fantasy feel, more like X-rated horror or dark fantasy. Which I'm not like into that shtick, but every once in a while, they'll have a really nice model. I have some Kingdom Death somewhere around here. Um, but yeah, I mean, David and I play Kingdom Death Monster every once in a while because he really likes Kingdom Death. He's not all into the aesthetic either, but he does like the game. So
I mean, I will say all of those sculpts, though, even if they're covered in phalluses
yes.
or phallici, however the conjugation is, um, they are really fantastic
Oh
sculpts. I
yeah,
mean,
they're
they're all
amazing. Yeah, they're well tooled and they're well sculpted. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
like they are beautiful sculpts.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I like a lot of the. We have the Dragon King, and he's a cool model. And there's if you're not into the X-rated factor, there are some really nice Kingdom Death models that are just really nice models, and they're all very well done. Now you're gonna pay for them, and a lot of them are out of print because that's his scheme, which is why I haven't bought any for a while. But David got in on his last Kickstarter, so we're waiting on a bunch of stuff to ship. That should be cool. Paizo did a arrangement with him, and they did some Kingdom Death versions of a few of their iconics, and I can't wait to see those in person.
That's great, planer spoons.
Where's Planer?
Yeah. I get the impression maybe that's not planer at the
keyboard.
helm.
Yeah,
At the helm. Yeah.
could be a different Planer, a younger Planer taking over. I missed a mold line. Oh noes. We have to fix this. Ah, where's my knife? My son strikes again. Yes, Planer, we figured. Yes.
Planer teaspoons. I like that.
Planer
Actually, that's fun.
teaspoons. That's pretty funny. Alright, so I missed another mold line, and I corrected it. Because I like Rock Troll, and I don't want him to have mold lines, if I can help it.
Actually, yeah, that's perfect. What if you, since you showed us how to do that with paint, like say you've already painted, you scrape the paint, you get the mold line, and then you paint over it, right?
Right.
But what if hypothetically you found a big gap somewhere underneath the arm or somewhere I guess you hadn't noticed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've already painted this much. Would you just gap over it and then
Yep.
repaint, or would
Yeah.
you? Okay.
Yeah, I would putty over it, and I just try to use as little putty as possible so I don't have to cover up too much of the paint job. If it's like I'll do that here. Like there's a gap right here. And I'll take some green at some point and just skin it over. I'll just try not to cover a lot of the stuff on either side so that I can easily paint over it and make it look like it matches. So that's and it's just no sweat, right? It's a little extra work, but that's what I get for not really inspecting the model as closely as I could have. So I just consider that like paying the price for starting fast and not spending the time in the beginning. So
No, I think it provides perfect opportunities for. I mean, because otherwise, sometimes it can feel too scripted, But when they see you have to deal with curveballs, then
Yep.
I think that's when the real expertise comes out.
Oh yeah, you just do it. I mean, you just deal and you go. I mean, it's really not a big deal to have to paint over something. You did it the first time, so you may as well just do it the second time. And often, if you've already painted over it, you know kind of how you did it, so you can go pretty fast when you touch it up. So it's not a big deal. Just make sure you do use your paint full strength when you first gouge part of the model there, because of course you do want to cover over the bones material and get a good adhesion there. I'm going to paint the inside of his... actually, I'll probably go over this with goblin skin in a bit, because we are going to paint his hands pink, like orangier, like around his ears and his nose. Same with his little feet, or his gigantic feet, I should say. Let's see here. Just check it up. Nope, you guys are all just being silly. I don't need to answer anything if all you're being is silly. All right, so I pretty much... I corrected this a little bit, but I need to take some of my troll flesh. And what happened here is that essentially I put too high of a highlight down here. I went a little bit too far on some highlights here. I want that dramatic light sourcing. And when I looked at it from the side, now this looks good. I adjusted this a little bit. This is still a little bit light. So remember, we're using our imagination here. When you're imagining your overhead light sourcing, you need to really use your imagination and see, okay, well, would light really hit this very strongly? And the answer is that this part overlaps, and so no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't hit it very strongly at all. So we need to knock that down a little bit in order for that to read correctly when we have such dramatic shadows as this. If you're trying to do dramatic shading, you gotta use your imagination even more than you usually do to figure out, where does my light source come from? And I mean, light moves linearly, right? So it's not that hard. You just have to envision light as a line falling down from above. And whatever the line hits is, where you put your brighter highlights. And wherever the line skips over, you've got shadows. So technically, I should have a little bit more of a dark shadow here. This is where I'm doing style over substance, though. And you can make this call when you want muscles to stand out really, really brightly like that, where you want a little bit of a highlight right up against the shadow from the muscle up top, just like I did here. And that's what gives you the dramatic lighting effect. But I do need to bring down this this highlight even a little bit more to make it look like most of that is in shadow, because most of it is pointed more toward the ground than it is toward the sky. And I want him to be like in a cave where there's a strong light source falling, like there might be a crack in the cave ceiling that some light is seeping through. So I definitely want to get that dramatic lighting effect on this piece. Now, we went really slow yesterday because I was layering and not using the wet palette. So today what I'm hoping to do is speed up a fair amount because I've got the wet palette. So wet palette for me has always been a good tool for speed. Now that's a little bit harsh. You can grab some water and kind of blend in that line if you go quickly. There, that's a little better. I can come back and re-examine whether I want to put further highlights on that. So the whole arm, this whole arm is more in light because it is, if I kind of look at the line of it, this is going to be very strongly highlighted, but in general, this is more horizontal than this lower part of the arm. So that means that we won't highlight this quite as high as we highlighted it up here. And then the back is very vertical. It's a little sloping forward, so there'll be broader highlights than there are on the front, but in general, that's what you're doing. Thank you for boosting my Patreon. Oh, wait a minute. Just checking to make sure. All right, there we go. Checking to make sure I haven't missed anybody. If I miss an important question from you, please do repeat it, just in case Justin and I both miss it. We will happily answer it. I seem to have gotten a lot of paint on myself trying to remove a dog hair from my wet palette, Kiri. And so now I'm going to rinse myself off. Penalties of painting in a household with animals. As you all know, as almost all of you have animals. All right. What should we do? Should we do hand or should we do arm? I think I'm going to block in arm really fast and then I'm going to do hand. Alrighty, so we're going to be fearless here, right? We're going to just go really, really fast. So first of all, since going fast equals wet blending for me, especially with a wet palette, I'm using a lot of paint. You can see how much paint I've got on the brush. There's a big glob of it, and I'm using a bigger brush so I can go faster. I've already done the highlight on that elbow, so I think I'm going to do the arm here and then go down here and start blending in more of the goblin skin. So we're going to grab this. We know that we grabbed a bit of Noir Flesh with white and, Vampiric Mist and the Ogre skin yesterday to get strong highlights. So wet blending, you start out with a color laid down and then you smoosh the other color into it. If you have to stop and go back, you want to work fast because you want to get everything settled up. You want a bit of a blend here. You need to come back in with your troll flesh. You're probably going to be going back and forth a fair amount. What I like to use wet blending for is to set up an area. So I'm not looking for a finished blend here. I'm just looking to set up a highlight so that I can work further from that. So I'm going to essentially be mixing in a little bit more highlight here. And if it's not a perfect blend, it's okay. I can always come back and adjust it with layering. In fact, I often do because I want a little bit more precision. So this is a little bit less highlighted than up here because although it is facing the light slightly, it's not facing the light as much as up here. So we're going to keep working down. I can always add further highlights, so I'm pretty happy with just this blend right now. So I'm working more of my troll flesh in here, or troll hide, I guess is the correct name. And I have a little bit of a shadow there, so I want to smooth that out. So I'm going to essentially wipe off my brush on my wet palette a little bit, so like this. And then I can lift up and grab a little bit of a lighter color. Again, we're going to kind of mix. We're mixing the Knoll Pelt with a little bit of Ochre and a bit of Vampiric Mist to get a little bit of a lighter color. And then we're going to come back in and we're going to, we've gone very blue. There we go. And now we're going to come back in and we're going to work this into that wet color that we've got there for the troll color. And I just want a little bit of variation there. And if it's rough, it's rough. Don't overthink it. And the more paint you have on your brush, the more license you have to work for longer because the more paint on your brush, the longer it's going to stay wet. That's why I load up the model with that first coat of troll hide, is because after I do that, I've got enough paint on the model, it's going to stay wet for a little while. Then I have freedom to do some more wet blending before it starts to dry. All right, so once I've got that where I think it's looking pretty good, and again, we can always come back and do some more layering and bring this back up. Like the top of this muscle needs help for sure. That needs to be lighter, so we'll come back to that later. There we go. But now let's take it down and blend in our... I have a little bit of shoddy... Hey, J-Beard. Let's see here. Yeah, and people haircuts and everything. Yes, my hair has definitely gotten into everything. I see a little bit here of kind of shoddy cleaning again, where I went fast and I gouged the plastic a little bit. So I'm going to come in with a knife. I do find that knives are much better for getting mold lines and such off of bones than files. Just trying to slowly scrape it a little bit. Since I'm painting over this area anyway, now is a good time to correct this if I see that I've gouged the model with a knife when I was trying to take off its mold lines. And a very light pressure and a gentle scooping, scraping motion will slowly take off texture. Don't sweat it. Then you can always take your brush and kind of see if you get any little particles of it sitting around. We don't want particles. Particles are no good. They have no friends. And there is a little gemstone there at the edge, but I'm just going to paint over it with the green for now to get a nice base coat on it. And now let's grab some of this orange color. I could have used a pink. I could have gone Succubus Kiss, but I kind of wanted just to go orange as a... I wanted to keep my secondary triad going, which is green, orange, purple, if you'll remember. So, and I do tend to like the secondary triad better than the primary triad when I'm painting, although that is not always the case. I do go red, yellow, blue on occasion. So again, remember, we want to have a nice base of the green down first before we start bringing in the orange. And then as we highlight this, we're going to bring in more orange. I want all of his hands to be kind of fleshier colored. Just to give him a little variation too. Like this is nice because if you do this sort of thing, it gives you some variation in the skin tone. You could also do that by making, say, his underbelly lighter, but I really wanted to go olive with this one, so I chose not to do that. Instead, I'm going to do the hands and feet a different color to match with the face. And I want the color to get stronger down on the fingers. When you're wet blending, it's worth mentioning, you will never get as strong as either color. You'll always get a mix. So I can get close to pure goblin skin. But it's always going to be a little duller when I'm wet blending. It's never going to be like straight up goblin skin. It's always going to have a little bit of that olive in it. And so it's, that's one of the things about wet blending. You'll never get your pure shadow or your pure highlight. You need to go back if you want those and add them in with layering. Because otherwise, with the way that this works, you'll always have a little bit of both paints on your brush, and so you'll never get pure orange or pure green. All right, I want the inside of the hand, so we're going to go back and grab that. That's close to pure. I do want it brighter orange on the palms. I can blend in this edge. Again, we're not expecting a perfect blend. Oh no, he's got orange on his butt. When you notice blurfs like that, you can just throw water at it. Notice that I did not panic or freak out. I just did it. If you were too late, I'd have to reblend the butt, but I'm going to have to do that anyway because I actually use different colors, slightly different colors for this leg. I was using it as a demo for the Patreon. There we go. So a little bit of water helps you to blend in a rough edge. And I can do that again on the front. Then we've got a nice rough blend to start with. And from there, we can wait for that to dry so that we can get no olive in. And then we can start mixing together our goblin skin color and maybe a little bit of our vampiric mist and our ogre color to get this color like he's got up on his lips and stuff down there. That's just the base coat. Yeah, I could give him an orange butt, like a monkey, but, you know, you got to think about what you're trying to do at that point. Is he comedy or is he menacing? I'm going more menacing with him, so there's plenty of room in trollish and orcish tradition for going comedy. Alrighty. So when we look at this, let's just do the back while we're waiting for that to dry. The back is super easy. It's just a lot of troll skin, and then we're going to highlight and shade these masses that we've got. A lot of troll hide. I should use the correct name, but they're all like hide, flesh, pelt, and I'm always like, I can't remember what I'm supposed to be saying here. Ron should have been consistent. Everything should have been skin or something. Right? All right, so we're going to touch up, and this is where we're going to just kind of go a little fast. Remember, the upper surfaces that are facing the light are going to be brighter. You can just dab on a little bit if you want. Instead of wet blending, you can just block in the shadows and highlights. Because you can always just use this to figure out where your highlights and shadows are. I want to get a little closer. Hold on. There we go. Everything's light, but you can see what I'm doing. I'm blocking in. And I got a little light on this side because I didn't put down my troll flesh first. You can also wet blend with slightly thinner paint. So like as your paint sits on the wet pellet and it kind of starts to absorb water and thin itself, that's not a bad thing. You can still get good results. Alrighty. And then we want to grab some of our indigo and kind of figure out like where our really dark shadows are. And if the paint is wet, you can certainly wet blend a bit there. Or you can just shadow. Or you can do a bit of both, depending on what you want to do. But you do want to figure out where your darkest shadows are going to be. And that's going to be the areas that are really pointing away from the light. And you need that drama, remember, to give us the idea that there's a strong light source. You have to go really dark with your shadows if you want that strong light source. One of you who was on my Patreon was trying to do that. Was it a Batman figure? It was a comic book figure, and you're trying to do really, really cartoony shadows and also pretty deep shadows because the reference for the figure was kind of in a partially lit, I guess, environment. So he had a lot of strong black shadows on his coat, and that's exactly where you have to go. That's why you have to go so dark. I mean, when you want dramatic light sourcing, you have to go dark with your shadows. Comic book artists know this. And when they want a dramatic scene, or a figure that's not strictly on the up and up, they will often use heavy shadows for the environment to suggest that. So pay attention to other art forms and how they do things. I'm going to use just a little bit of this indigo for like lesser shadows. Good day, dog father. Good day, trouble. Let's see here. Oh, cool. Awesome, Scrying. I'm glad you're going to get the ceramic palette. Remember to use deep paint puddles and to thin your paint more, and it will get good mileage out of it. All right. Okay, Planer. Now I have to know, are you a Renaissance Fair aficionado? Because, you know, when you call somebody a wench, that's automatically what I think of.
You know, that's one thing I was gonna do earlier this year. I think it was, well,
Yeah.
obviously before COVID, was taking Kaylee to her first Renaissance fair.
Oh, yeah, but then they ended up canceling. Yep.
Yeah, and I think you and I had talked about it briefly, but end
Yeah.
of last year.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely wanted to go before I left Texas because I like the Texas fairs. I like Scarborough. But I didn't. The COVID, as usual, got in the way, and so I didn't get to. So I guess I'll have to come back to Texas and go to the Renaissance Fair at some point.
Yeah, you'll need to do that, or we're gonna have your going away dinner.
Yeah, yeah. We never got to have Anne's going away dinner. I know. So yes,
Yeah,
I
that stuff
do.
got put on hold. Yeah, the wedding. Actually, there was a wedding that Mickey and I were supposed to go to in November in Buffalo,
Uh
New
huh.
York, which I was a little hesitant about because it's Buffalo. But then they canceled it, or not canceled it. They pushed it off to 2022, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yep, yeah. Because just nobody knows what's going to happen. So Malin, at TRF, a booth at TRF. Is that where your Ren Fair near Houston is? Is that what it is? The booth you have? Yeah, I mean, when I figured there were a bunch of Ren Fairs out here, especially with the weather being so nice. But yeah, I'll just have to wait. I'll have to wait to drag David to his first Renaissance Fair. I've already warned him. There's a lot of puns because he's anti-pun. I make puns every once in a while, and then I giggle a lot, and then he kind of gives me the look. He's a weird gamer in that way. I mean, what gamer does not like puns? I guess there are gamers that do not like puns, but they are rare. Because usually people just brutalize you with puns so much when you're a gamer that you just like give in. You're like, I've taken too much pun damage. I'm just gonna join them. If you can't beat them, join them, as the old cartoons used to say. So I'm blocking in more shadows here. You guys can see how I'm doing it. Pirate group. Yes, TRF. Cool. Yeah, I went to TRF once because of the dogs. It was just a really hard Ren Fair for us to go down to, just because it has to be an overnight thing, and getting a dog sitter for 4 crazy Shiloh shepherds was difficult at the time. But we did go down once when we only had a couple dogs, and it was much easier to get dog sitting. And now, of course, I'm down to 1 dog, but because she's old, I don't want to board her, so my traveling is pretty limited until Kiri leaves us. That's all right, though. I mean, in that way, COVID kind of coincided on a favorable level. It's like I would have felt like I was constantly telling David we couldn't travel, but now it's COVID, so we can't travel anyway, so I don't feel as bad for not wanting to leave Kiri. With my luck, Kiri's gonna like hang on for another 3 years though, and I won't be able to go to Italy or France for another 3 years because of my dog.
Oh, when are we going to Italy or France, man?
I want to go, like, it would be nice to go next year or something. We were going to go to the Netherlands this year for World Expo, for Miniatures World Expo, but then it got, we just decided that was just not happening. I didn't hear if they actually canceled it. I kind of assumed they did. But yeah, so lately we've been watching a lot of food shows featuring chefs who are like from Italy or France and really nice restaurants over there, and that makes us want to go and eat food in Italy and France. Plus, I've never been to either, and I took French in high school, and college. And I've always wanted to go over and see the Louvre and everything. So, because when you're into art and food, I think Italy and France are natural like goals to get over to. Because those two things are very much a mainstay of those nations. So, yeah, I would like to go to Florence and Tuscany to Italy, and so we'll see. I mean, it like I said, it kind of depends on Kiri at this point, because I don't want to board her for like, if you're going to go over to Europe, you may as well go for 7 or 10 days at least. And I would definitely not want to board her for that amount of time when she's so old. It's just too high of a chance of something happening, and I would feel so bad if I was not there if something happened. So the dog is going to dictate my travel plans for the foreseeable future.
Actually, McKaylee's parents, for their 30th wedding anniversary, were supposed to be in for 3 weeks, I think is what they planned.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like 2 weeks ago. They were
Yeah.
like, yeah, we would have been, but it's unfortunate. I mean, they were supposed to go all over Europe.
Yeah, my parents had to cancel their 50th wedding anniversary plans with all of us.
That's so sad.
Yeah, so they were going to do an Alaska cruise with the family. And so that was also put on hold. Again, kind of happy because I might not have been able to go because Kiri. But yeah, it was still a bummer to have to put it off, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so we're blacking in the back there to try to get our dramatic shadows in and to make everything look correct. I'll probably do a lot of adjusting. A lot of these areas might not be... A lot of these areas are probably lighter because if I look at the troll, his back is at a slight slant, so he would be getting a fair... there would be some light falling here and there. So I have to pay attention as to where I think the light would really hit stronger and where it really is going to be in shadow. So some areas that are cutting down, like the underside of this muscle, I definitely want to do that dark. Yeah, Grim. I would love to make it a tax deductive old trip. I think they might kind of give me the eyebrow over that. Yay, core paint set. Grat Strange. Hey, thanks for the gifted sub, Malin. You caught Grim out. I'm sure he meant to use his Prime sub or something, but now he's got a gifted real sub. Hey, Rabbit Boy, it's nice to meet you. I don't think I've seen you before. I am Anne. I used to make the paint for Reaper. Now I am painting a troll because, well, I moved and now I just paint online for Reaper. And we're talking about all sorts of stuff today, but mostly I'm talking about trying to block in some shadows to get a really dramatic lighting effect like I got on the front of Mr. Troll. So, did the front of Mr. Troll. We've been working on the arm. I've been kind of putting fleshy tones into the hands so that it can look kind of like the ears and nose and mouth up there. Had a real sub for lunch. That's good, Izzy Lobo. All right. Just making sure I'm not missing questions. You just expired. Well, now you are unexpired. Yay. Oh, Super Glue, yeah. Trollbot. Yep, Trollbot. Trollbot. Folsom and San Jose Ren fairs are great. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear there's one in San Jose. We're in Mountain View, so. Vallejo as a NorCal Pirate Fest. All right, yeah, Mivwin. I'll totally ask on stream when it starts being... Is it springtime or summer for those Ren fairs? Since I'm new out here, I do not know what time of year to look for them. It was always spring and fall in Texas. Let's see here. Paint stick. Oh, okay, you're asking Jetta Rose. Okay. Ren Fair is closed due to plague. Yep. Virtual Comic-Con starts today. Interesting. Yeah, everybody's virtual this year. Oh, wrong person. Oh, I got a scraped... There's a scraped troll butt here. We're gonna have to touch it up. That does happen. Like, in general, the paint sticks pretty well to bones, but every once in a while you can accidentally scrape with a fingernail or something. All right, let's get this dark shadow in. I think there's a dark shadow in there. There's definitely a dark shadow there. Sometimes we have to get really bold with our shadows. We just have to be very brave and block them in and see how they make it look, and we can always adjust. But if you're looking for drama, you need to go really dark, like over here where I kept so much of this in dark shadow and only used a dark olive to highlight it. So here, on this back, there's it's like either in shadow or it's getting the light hitting it, so it's a little bit more dramatic here. Oh, you put your 50th on hold too, huh, Twisted Oma? Bummer. Yeah, I mean, for birthdays, we went out for my birthday. We went out to, because we have outdoor dining. It's okay, and we feel pretty okay about that, so at least we could do that. Paint stick. Explain paint stick, Scrying Eye. What is a paint stick? Am I missing it? Is it obvious? Yeah, I mean, Gurgi, they respond like any other model to sealers. Once you have although aerosol primers are often a bad idea on bones because they'll react chemically with the PVC. Once you have a layer of paint down, it's not going to react. That paint is going to be a barrier. So you can use a spray sealer if you want, or just use a regular sealer. I'm looking for Scrying to come back with me on that question. What's a paint stick? Oh, yeah. I mean, I do. Like, if you remember, we had this one on a old film canister because I had one lying around. But with something like the Troll, with big models, it depends. I mean, I haven't painted the underside of, like, the lower side of this, really. So handling it isn't going to hurt it. Like, when I start getting to the point where I'm painting the feet and stuff, if it's not comfortable for me to hold this big round base, or when I get to the point where I'm painting this, then I'll reach for my big platform and I'll put it on there. But right now, with this big model, I'm painting the upper part of him. I'm not painting the lower part of him, so it really doesn't hurt to just hold him. With other big models, like when I was painting Soldier, let me put little Wraith back. When I was painting Soldier, who's a 12 inches tall figure, very heavy, I actually use bubble wrap for that sort of figure. I use it for dragons also, where I just make a cradle of bubble wrap in my hand. I just put down like a piece of bubble wrap that's soft. And that lets me hold the figure without like rubbing paint off or the oils in my hands like act. And you know, your hands can be acidic, your skin can be acidic. It can help paint rub off. So for that, I use bubble wrap. But here, I mean, I'm really just holding it on the bottom here, and I'm not really holding it anywhere I'm going to rub off the paint where I'm working, so I'm okay. Yeah, bubble wrap gloves. Well, you don't want that. You don't want to cut off all oxygen to your skin, right? But using a bubble wrap handle to hold a large model is perfectly fair. And the bubble wrap isn't abrasive. It's not at all, right? It's just totally smooth. So it's a nice way to keep that from rubbing off. Yeah. Yeah, so for smaller models, I absolutely use a handle. But for bigger models, it depends on when it gets uncomfortable or when I'm starting to work on the area that I'm holding it by. Alrighty. Oh, good. Yay for Jimmy. Thanks to Jimmy for plugging the line. I love to hear oh, looks like your kids have hacked you again, Planner. As I throw the troll onto the whatever. Let's see here. I really want to stop and imagine where's my light sourcing. And I might need to put a strong light source. Let me see if I can get a strong light source here. Sometimes it's nice to have a lamp directly above your model. For me, I've got a little light I can put on my webcam. And what this lets me do is it lets me put this model under here and really see where the shadows fall and where the highlights are. So I can see more easily, like, where should I be highlighting and where should I be shading. Like right now, putting this under the light, I can actually see some strong shadows being cast under these gem clusters. So I think I'm going to actually block those in. Since I can see them, I can just paint right over them, which is really nice. So having a small, strong light that you can put your model under to like block in shadows when you're trying to do a strong light source is really useful. Also ignore the booming and various noises. David is apparently setting up to work in the office right now. So there are computer setting up noises. But yeah, so here I'm able to block in, see these like strong shadows. That's coming down from these crystals up here. So I'm able, and there's another one over here. So I'm able to essentially use a real light source from the angle that I want to be conveying to see where I really should be shading. Yeah, so, and sometimes when you've already painted part of it, it's hard to kind of see, but just kind of squint at it and see if you can figure it out. But do notice how much faster we're working with using the wet palette. Like just it encourages a much faster, quicker approach for things to come together. There's a little shadow there. Want to put a dark shadow right under there. Shadow, shadow, shadow. Shadow, shadow. So that's starting to look a bit more dramatic. Work meeting is finally over. Awesome, Dragon Eye. Crash, bang, computer is ready to go. Yeah, I kind of like that, Grim. I did, Sarduki. I did one of the earlier, like I think this third maybe Rock Troll stream. If you look up his item number or by name, either the item number or the name should be in the description of the video. We did this gem, and we then worked on showing how it would change, like how it would influence the rest of the gems here. Like I've just really done spot highlights on them to quickly set them up. This one is the one we took time, and we used a photo reference, and I discussed like why I'm doing various things. So yeah, a lot of these are just like set up very quickly with, since we're using mostly Dungeon Dwellers, I was using Eldritch Purple and Black Indigo and then White, or Sorcerer's Mist in this case, which is my white for this particular model, or Vampiric Mist, sorry. And it's just, this is very quickly set up here. If you look at it, I was using thinner paint, and I just did the Eldritch on top, and then I went in with a thinner, little bit mix of Black Indigo in the Eldritch for this, the shadows. And then here I'm just taking Vampiric Mist, and I'm just hitting the highlights on the sides that the light would come from, like the sides that are pointing upward. So yeah, so the light here is coming a little bit obliquely. It's coming straight down from here, not from over here. So I was hitting the facets accordingly. But yeah, you can go back and watch that video. It is all about gemstone painting. I'll probably go into a little bit more when I'm like hitting these guys, but these are much smaller gems, so it won't be necessarily as instructive as looking at how you do the big guys, where you really are talking about refracting light and putting flaws in and stuff like that. So do go back and like look that up if you are interested in it. All right, let's see here. I want a kind of an in-between color, so I'm mixing my Knoll Pelt and my Troll Flesh and grabbing some Vampiric Mist. I've lost a little bit of my yellow tones. I think that might be highlighted a little bit too much. Let me look at it under my light. I'm trying to see where my shadows really fall. And I got to make sure that I'm moving my light to the right angle. All right, so actually this should be a lot darker. And we should have some, let me just smooth this out a little bit. This is going to be darker. And if I need stuff to go just darker in general, I can just grab a little bit of my Troll Hide and my Black Indigo and do a quick mix. Glazing is a little bit harder for me on the wet palette, but you can at least get it close and then just paint it over the surface. You can at least get a little bit close. The problem is just the controlling it and getting the consistency right. I'm much better at nailing a glaze when it's on my well palette, because then I know exactly how it should look. Trying to do it on the wet palette is harder for me. What was I just looking at? I was looking at where, yeah, that's right. So this actually needs to be more in shadow, because there is actually a definite cut in here where it blocks the light on the other side here, but that means the light isn't going to hit all of this. So I have made a mistake. I must grab a little bit of my Troll and my Black Indigo and really shade this. Add some deep shadow there, because there wouldn't be any light hitting the top of that necessarily. So then I can blend it out a little bit. So this is all about kind of blocking in where you think the light is falling. And then you can look a little bit at where it actually is. If you've got a nice overhead light source that you can hold up your model to, you can kind of double check yourself. Because it's not looking perfect yet, although it's starting to look better. So I definitely know that I need to tune this. Like there's probably a shadow there, leading down to that more of a highlight. And it's probably a little bit darker here. And again, this is where your imagination comes in. You're imagining where the light is going to fall. And then you can even use your overhead lamp to kind of figure out exactly where it will fall. There are times you might want to bring out a detail even though it's toward the underside. Like down here, I actually did put a small highlight on each of these muscles, which are coming off of here. Even though they probably wouldn't get that much of a highlight, I figured there would be some bounce light coming off of this pectoral. So you can take a little bit of artistic license as long as it still looks right. All right, planar children, knock it off. We don't need your silliness in chat. It takes up room that I need to be answering questions in. Planar children. I just think about your children as extra-dimensional beings, planar. From the plane of mischief, apparently. Let's see here. So that definitely is coming out. That definitely needs a highlight. A little bit there. A little bit here. Starting to look a little bit better. I almost want to look at it from above. Another way to do this is to draw a visual line. So since I have my camera here, I can tilt the model until it is kind of facing the camera at the angle the light would be falling. And then we can see what details we can actually see. And we shouldn't be able to really see all these big bands of shadow. As we tilt the model, those bands of shadow should really disappear. And so if I can still see a band of shadow like I can right here, that means I actually need to lighten that a little bit. That means there's a little bit more of this that should be getting light that is not. Right? Down here we're pretty good. But up above we're a little bit. Yes, duct tape. I mean, it's cool if you're going to be silly, children. Just you don't need to be silly in public. And if that's the way you're going, just become a stand-up comedian now and be done with it. All right, so I'm going to essentially block in a little bit more of this area and lighten it up a little bit because I could see it that it needed a little more light when I tilted it this way. There's a little bit of light here that I missed. A little protrusion of muscle. He's got a very lumpy back. A little bit of that. A little bit of that. Probably want to go a bit lighter here. The other problem with the wet palette is when you're trying to do blending with layering, like I am now, it fights you a bit because getting the proper paint consistency is really hard. That's okay. I need to thin that a little. I keep tilting the model up so that I can do that check I just showed you where I kind of look at how the camera is seeing it and see if there are spots that I need to lighten that are showing me shadows, which shouldn't be from that angle given how the light is falling. Some of this stuff needs to be a little lighter. That's starting to look more real now. See how you, when you use physics to actually see how the light is going, and you would make just a few adjustments, now it's looking a lot more realistic as far as highlights and shadows. So utilizing these tools can really make a difference. They aren't even done yet, Machine Gun Red. Like the crystals are only just like a bit of washing and glazing and some white highlights. They're not done. This guy is done, this big guy. Everything else is just blocked in. Like, nothing else is done at all as far as the crystals. So if you want to do this, it's super easy. Just use slightly thinner paint over the base bones material and, you know, go with a more transparent color. I used Eldritch Purple in this case. And then I did just a wet blend that was really thinned down with Eldritch Purple and Black Indigo. You could also use Nightshade Purple or Monarch Purple or another purple. And it just turned out that way. So I haven't done a thing to it. It just ends up looking okay. Not good in my opinion, but getting there. There's a lot of crystals up there though, so I know a lot of people wouldn't like to paint them. Yeah, the lighting is what it's all about on this figure, Red Links. Part of why we're using a wet palette instead of a well palette like I usually do. Yeah, I always use 2 lights, one on either side of me, and then having this little light built into the camera is really useful for like figuring out how shadows are casting, you know? So the back is really starting to improve now that I'm being able to kind of tilt it up. See how the shadows disappear. And that means that's why it's looking more realistic now. Is we don't have inappropriate shadows. There is an inappropriate shadow here that I need to take down a little bit. See that? And we have some lesser highlights we could bring up down here. So I can see those little areas that I do need to bring up. But look at how those deep dark shadows all disappear. But look, they're there. But when we're looking at where the light is falling, they're not there. And that's perfect. So use that. Definitely use that. Hello, Mad Cat. All right, so let's fix the things that we saw when we tilted this up. Like this shadow right here there needs to be more of a highlight here. We don't want this dark shadow. Light should be falling there. So let's grab some paint, some Troll mixed with Knoll, mixed with Vampiric Mist. And ideally we thin it down just a little bit. I think I'm losing some of the water in my wet palette at this point. And we can block that in a little bit more over here. And I need to also make it lighter on the top of this muscle because I can see that dark band starting too soon. So block that in so that the light is falling correctly, and then we're going to hit a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, with some lighter color. Yeah, this is where the wet palette can really frustrate me. When it starts to dry out a little bit, or I'm trying to layer instead of wet blend. That's when I'm like, all right, where's my well palette? Oh, actually, I see a place that I should have used a shadow and didn't. Right under here. All right, so let's see. Now let's turn it again. There we go. We've managed to get all really dark shadows, except maybe a little bit there. I can see a little bit of really dark shadow right down here. So if I take that off, then I should be good. I hope you guys are absorbing this because this is just so helpful to be able to use an overhead light source to troubleshoot your lighting when you're trying to do dramatic effects. And it's easy for anybody to do. It is not something you need to be an expert at. You just need to paint what you see, which is easier than you think when it comes to shadows and highlights. So we're looking pretty good, and when I look at it, it looks a lot more real now that I've done this. I probably need a little bit more blending and shading and highlighting. I need to blend everything in now, but my highlights and shadows are placed correctly. Yeah, so now I can do blending. I might want to do blending with my well palette, because if I'm trying to do layering, then it's just going to be more useful. I'm going to get my paint to the right consistency, and it's going to stay. The reason I'm having trouble blending right now is that the wet palette is going to kind of alter my paint consistency over time, so I can't mix up thinned puddles and have them stay exactly the way I want them. And that's why I use a wet palette or a well palette when I do most of my painting, is that I like to have that control. I do a lot of layering, so for me, having that ability to keep the paint at exactly the consistency I want is really important to me for what I do, for my style. So what you use, the tools you use are going to influence your style as much as anything else, guys. Your tools will make some things easier, they'll make some things harder, and you will develop shortcuts and techniques for yourself during your painting to get the effects that you want that are a function of what you are using. So alrighty, I think we're doing pretty well there. Just trying to see, that's a pretty vertical surface. I just want to blend that in a little bit. We've got some blocky parts that definitely have dabs and such down here. Alrighty, let's see here. Now what I do need to do is I do need to take up that arm. Remember the trick that we used here to see that we were all in line with our highlights. Now we can look at this arm and we can say, oh, we need to make this lighter. Like I can see it, so therefore it should have light on it. Let's take and set up our wet blend one more time. Then let's set up some lighter color. And let's look at how it goes on while we're tilting the model and painting what we see. So I can still see that area there, so it needs to have more light. Yeah, all right. A little bit down here, there. Up here needs a little bit more. This area has an area that sticks out. And it starts to fade when we get down to around here. But we can at least block in where our strongest light should be and then worry about blending it. So that's a little bit more realistic. And essentially we brought the light up a lot on that surface. We don't want to lose all of our light when we go down here. We just want it to be a little bit darker as it gets vertical to the light source. Or yeah, vertical to the light source. That is the term I wanted. So, and then here, once again, this would be a lot smoother if I was using the other palette, but we can at least set some stuff up. You can see here how everything is blended a lot better than it is down here, and that's because I was using the Well palette yesterday. Let's see here. Just going to use a little bit of highlighting here. Of course, we're got a lot of gemstones over here that we're going to have to deal with at some point. Let's see here. That is looking pretty good. I've got a dark shadow here I've got to take care of. That's looking a lot better. We're not seeing any real harsh shadows there now, even though there are some. So that's excellent. We can add some dark, some black indigo under parts of this that are definitely going to get shadow. So I guess that this lesson was more about lighting than about anything. Just a little bit. Gotta be real careful about where you put that black indigo shadow. You want to make sure that it's definitely not getting any light so that it won't show up too much. Like I went a little too far on that side. Yeah, it's a bit disruptive, Planer, thanks. Like, especially when I'm like used to looking up and like, you know, seeing chat questions and everything. It derails the chat a bit. So I appreciate it. Overdid it there. Too much. This is why I like my other palette better. Here we go. It's a little late in the day to switch to the well palette at this point. I'd have to mix everything up, so it's a little better. Yeah, there we go. That is better. Maybe a little bit lighter here. And this is all being very persnickety, so you don't have to do it to the level that I'm doing it, but I want it to look right, and so for me, it's worth it just mucking around with it a bit to make sure that all of the highlighting and shading looks right. Yeah, I mean, this is most important. Obviously, I'm trying to do a very dramatic light sourcing here, right? And so if you want that really dramatic light sourcing, it is very popular in a lot of European paint jobs, you'll notice, and in some American paint styles as well. Like Matt DiPietro is a great one for the dramatic lighting and shadows. And David, my boyfriend, is also. So if you want to do this sort of awesome dramatic effect, then yeah, definitely got to pay attention to your lighting. Got to start imagining more where it's falling. Got to use real world light sourcing to kind of figure out if you're doing exactly what you need to do to get the right effect here. So yeah, that's what you're doing. You're trying to mimic. You're mimicking and exaggerating. Your placement has to be right, but then you can exaggerate to the point that you want it. So yeah, it's cool. It's a different style than I usually do, but it is fun. I like it because I think I'm growing to like it just because it's fun to try to mimic the actual lighting. I like that I can kind of compare like the actual realistic lighting. I grew up doing more of a when I started painting, I was doing more of a Games Workshop style, which is just consistent highlighting over the whole surface. And then I've evolved through the years. There is no bad style. There's just what style you like and what style you want to paint in. It took me a long time to break out to grok this sort of style, though. Like, it looks really good, but I didn't know if I wanted to paint in it, you know. Oh, thank you for the gift sub, Malin. That is, we are getting up toward the, yeah, and if you don't have a light on your camera, Dragon Eye, just get an overhead desk lamp that you can, spotlight onto the figure. That works too. You can even use your phone, as long as you've got a phone holder. Get your selfie stick, set it up. Hey, Jedi Jared. Oh, good. Thanks, Orkla. Thanks for the cheer. Hey, Justin, what are we at for our subtotal? We got to be getting into the 40s now, aren't we?
I think as of that Malin one right there, that puts us at, let's see.
I'm going to try to glaze, guys. I think I'm going to build this in my well palette, though. Well, maybe not. Let's try. Let's be foolhardy and try to do it on here.
Actually, 38.
38, so we're almost to 40. Excellent. I'm making a glaze of troll hide because I want to kind of smooth things together. I'm going to paint it over the whole area. And I'm using a lot of it because wet palette, and I had to load up my brush. So now I'm going to take my brush and squeeze it out. And I'm going to go back and take off all this excess. All these places where this is pooling, you do not want to leave it. And I usually pull from the edges of places, both because it's going to pool there and because it makes it less likely that I'm going to leave a brush stroke. If I have to put my brush in the middle of somewhere, I try to just use the tip and very lightly dab it. Because you don't want to disrupt the glaze. You want the glaze to be nice and even. Don't want to leave brush marks. But you want to take off all that loose liquid. So I wanted to use that glaze just to blend things in a little bit more. It also takes everything down a notch, and that's useful. Like if you want it, like I can go back in now and re-highlight and even make it more spot highlight. Yeah, we're shooting for 100 subs because I want to do a bigger giveaway on my AMA. And to do that, we have to make sure we get enough subs. I'm going to also glaze this one over here. I'm going to actually glaze the up top part too. Want to blend in some of that. So just getting your brush full of glaze and glazing over it can help smooth things in. It also is going to shift the color a little bit since I'm using troll hide. It's going to make it a little more yellow, a little less white, which is kind of, I want that. So I pull off all the excess liquid and then we wait. I've got a little excess liquid there. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, boop, boop. Good. Don't want it to pool because it's going to dry up on the raised surfaces if I let it pool. Yeah, pretty much. How do you make a thin glaze on the wet palette? Use the well palette. Pretty much, Mighty Garrett. 38. Yeah, so we're over the third of a waypoint. And since we just had an AMA on last Friday, like, this is not bad progress at all. Thanks, Sarduki. Thanks for the gift sub. But yeah, definitely the wet palette is not the optimal surface for really thin glazes. For big areas, when you want a pool of it, you know, and you want to apply over everything, you have to pretty much remix it. Or do what I did and make a huge puddle of it and put a ton of it on your brush and go over it and hope you can come back and fix it before it dries with watermarks. But yeah, so this is coming across. I like these dark crystal shadows that I put in up here. I like those a lot. I want to kind of maybe mess around with those and make sure there's a kind of a jagged line of shadows coming down from up there. Especially here where they're projecting out. There's a little bit of one over here, so I might want to go and accentuate that shadow. Because I like that effect. It's very realistic. Alrighty, we have 15 minutes left. What am I going to do? Well, I guess I see what I mean, though, guys? Like, I spent all day yesterday just on this one shoulder. You know, this little area. And then today, what do? We mock out, like, a whole bunch of stuff. Like, because we're using the wet palette. So see what I mean about, you know, how the wet palette can really engender speed in your painting. And it's not bad painting. Like, I'll have to smooth out the blends a bit, but that's not bad. This is a good start. So we'll just go over here and we'll block in some more stuff. So I would say it's very viable to use the wet palette to set up a paint job. And then if you want smoother blends in areas, you can switch palettes. That's why I always say you should try both. Get used to the strengths and weaknesses of both kinds of palettes. And that way you know what you want when you're looking for a particular effect. It's like learning to use different shapes of brushes and different thinnesses of paint. Always try to grow your toolbox as much as you can, because then when you want to pull out an effect, you will have the best idea of how to do it. But we're getting a lot of the back of this troll done today, so that makes me happy. Although I did put too much paint on my wet palette. This always happens. I should learn that I just need little tiny dabs of it. So the light's falling very strongly on the upper part of this arm because it's very vertical to the light. Gonna bring this down. At this point, I want to maybe go a little directional with my light, because originally the light was coming down strongly on this side, like pretty much down straight from here, like it was a shaft of light. So then, as I tilt, I got to keep in mind there are going to be shadows based on this, on the fact that the light is going to spread out to either side at an angle. So that's why the side of his face is more in shadow, and the side of his chest is really heavily shadowed. So I'm going to have to remember to do that over here. I'm going to have to remember to block in this really dark shadow. So that I can keep carrying this effect. That he's got definite shading. So if I draw a line here with my brush, you can kind of see where the shadows should be when you're essentially assuming this light source. So I definitely need a band of shadow on the underside of where my brush was, up against the head. And then I want to go with Troll Flash or Troll Hide or whatever the heck it is. Thanks, Ron, for giving me a naming stratagem that changes. I can never remember what's hide and what's skin and what's flesh and what's... I can remember kobold scale because it's the only scale. Otherwise, it's difficult. I am Grim. I asked to teach a class on Twitch. And I'm doing a class on paint consistency for different techniques with MSP. Because that's where my sweet spot is. I'm just going to shade under these gemstones here. And I want to get a highlight going on. Definitely it's going to be hitting this side. Going to kind of blend this in here and get some more light. But yeah, I want to do something on using how much to thin your paint for various techniques, essentially. I'm going to be using a bunch of different paints with different types of bodies and thicknesses and transparencies, and kind of use the class to nail down how much you thin for things like layering or glazing. How much water do you add? Because everybody always asks me for formulas, and the answer is there is no one formula. But you can extrapolate from a few different paints a general range of water that you should be adding to get good layering or to get good glazes or whatever. And so we will do that in that class. And if I can do it on Twitch, then it'll be free for the ages, and you can always go back and watch it. So originally I was going to do it as a Patreon thing for public for free. All right, so here what I want a heavy shadow with the light coming down right next to the head for sure. But then there needs to be some light. And this time it's weird because this part of the arm is going to face away from the light if the light's coming down here from an angle. So you can see it, this part of the arm is on the underside. So we definitely want some heavy shadows there. So I can drop some black indigo in there to force myself to do. Sometimes you just need to force yourself to do really dark shadows. You can always highlight up again. But sometimes you just got to go for it. And that'll make you get out of your comfort zone. And then maybe you'll make something that you really like. David is also teaching at ReaperCon, by the way. What are you teaching, David? OSL?
OSL and painting bust faces.
Oh, that's right. He's doing a bust painting class, guys, for faces. You should totally take it. I think he's using a Young Miniatures bust.
Yes, Young Miniatures Achilles. The version with the helmet off.
Yeah, so when that class goes up, you'll be able to see what the bust is and hopefully have time to order it if you want to paint along during the class.
Yeah, I hope that information that I put in makes it into the online course description.
Yeah. But yes, so we are both going to be teaching at ReaperCon. It'll be fun. We probably need to make sure our classes are not at the same time because we have one video set up.
Oh, yeah.
We probably need to email Ron about that. Anne and David's classes cannot be at the same time. Yeah, Grim, pretty much. At this point, actually, the silly thing is you could show me any paint from any company, and I could mix you a rough amalgamation with using the Reaper Clear Brights and a couple other colors.
And we do have different webcams. And how else are we going to create that true ReaperCon experience of hearing both your class and then the class right one over?
That's true. That's true. Do you want ReaperCon verisimilitude, guys? Where you can hear David and me teaching at the same time and you just get two classes at once? I have actually, because I project my voice so well, because I did a lot of theater in high school and early college and public speaking, but because I project so well, I've actually had people who are in the class next to me stop their class and say, well, listen to Anne right now because she's saying something that's really important. So it's really silly. It's really quite silly. Yeah, just like the real ReaperCon. Exactly, Dragon Eye. Yeah, it should be good. I mean, it's a big undertaking, right? Because we've never done a virtual ReaperCon before. So it's just trying to figure out how it's all going to work. Like, I'm kind of glad that I'm on the outside looking in on this one. Justin's probably jealous and wishes he was on the outside looking in on this one.
Only a little bit.
Only a little bit. Because it's interesting, right? It's a different challenge.
I will say it's a technological challenge unlike I have ever faced ever in my life. So
wow. Cool. Well, that's good. So if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I expect you to speak at my eulogy.
I'm just trying to get this lighting right here. Underside of things. Very dark. Very dark. Must stuff more black. Oh, I missed his armpit. More black indigo goes in the armpit. Some things, really deep shadows, you can just block in black indigo and leave them. Don't worry about blending or anything. All right, so that's coming along now. That's starting to come along now. So yeah, I got that. I still feel like that other shoulder, I need to like put it under the light. Remember our trick? Put it under the light and see where the light is going to be. So I need to move it a little because the light is supposed to be like coming right straight down from here. So essentially what I can do, if you don't know where your light is falling, like if it's really hard because everything is painted, take your brush and move it. And you can see then how the shadow is falling. So that can give you an idea kind of where your shadows are. Like I can see now that there's a strong shadow here under his ear, cast from the light source. But I can also see, can I see? Yeah. Like the shadow's falling straight down the side of some of these crystals, so they're not going to actually cast a shadow over here. So, and the shadow here is mostly going to be from the face. Here I can just do the straight down. So I need to get rid of this dark shadow right here. So yeah, you're using a kind of a combination of techniques to try to figure out your highlights. And that way you can work from nature and you're not just imagining everything. Because I always say this about like painting animals or painting anything that's in nature is that you can do it from memory, but you will find that it doesn't look quite right because there are always details you forget. And this is true of lighting as well, as you can imagine your light sourcing and you can get so far, but then there will come a point where you're like, this still doesn't look quite right. And then it really helps to have something right there that you can look at it realistically and say, oh, okay, well, the light isn't falling. I'm not having a shadow from these crystals, actually. It's falling straight down the side of them. So then I just need to put a dark line between them and the troll and actually bring these highlights up more than I thought. Black Indigo is not currently in production, Rathmore. It is a ReaperCon color. It will be in production when Bones 5 comes out. You can, in the meantime, mix it by mixing pure black, clear blue, and clear magenta. And don't quote me on this, but I kind of feel like I tried to give a recipe for it yesterday, and I think I was wrong. I think it's 4 drops of black, 2 drops of clear blue, and 2 or 3 drops of magenta. 3 drops of magenta, I think. I meant to look that up yesterday. But it's a color that you got very close to by doing that mix. So let's say try 4 drops of black, pure black, not another black. It has to be pure black. It has to be just the black pigment. Pure black is essentially a clear bright black. It's a single pigment black. The other blacks are not the same. Then add 2 drops of clear blue and 3 drops of clear magenta. You should get real close. Yeah, and then once it comes out, I expect you all to buy 3 bottles so that it stays in production. And it's just such a great shadow color. It's so useful. It makes this great bluish, it's so good. I love using purples to shade olive greens anyway. I think it's one of the best shading colors for them. And the little bit of blue in here just gives me a little bit of extra punch next to this green. I really adore the way that the shadows look on here with the color in them, right? And you're not going like real poppy with the color. It's subtle, but it's there. You can definitely see that there's like bluish color in these shadows and maybe a little bit of purple. So, and then the purple comes out really much when you start mixing it with Eldritch out here. Then you see the blue and you can also see the purple. So, Noir Black is actually a faded t-shirt black. It has white in it. Mighty Garrett. It's meant to be that faded t-shirt black is what we were going for. So it's not as light as charcoal gray, but it is not as black as pure black.
Oh, actually, Grim 444. You said this a while ago, but thankfully we have a team basically that we're working on for ReaperCon. So Collins and John have been pivotal in the tech planning. I will say that if it's Twitch related, it's 100% me. But a lot of the Zoom stuff and the Discord stuff we kind of came together on to make decisions and things like that.
That makes sense. Noir Black looks bluer to Affadure. That's because, actually, it's not because there's any blue in it. There is no blue in it. But different black pigments shift to different ways. So there's a black pigment that definitely shifts a little bit more blue, and then there's a black pigment that definitely shifts a bit more brown. And our black pigment is the one that tends to shift a little bit blue, and you can see this, actually, if you look at our metallics. It's actually where when I was first learning how to work with our pigments, it's where I first noticed it, because we would mix our silver and steel metallics with just black and white, but they would look blue. And people were like, oh, you put blue in it. And I'm like, no, not at all. But when I looked, then I realized that to make a more neutral black, I needed to add like some umber or something, because we don't have access to the black pigment that shifts brown. Which I'm kind of happy about, because as far as mixing colors goes, the bluer black is, I think, a better mixer. But, you know, your mileage may vary. Obviously, some people like the warmer black. I can't remember which. We use carbon black, so it's a blue shifter. And then I think it's Mars black that's a warmer black. I don't remember. It's been so long since I used tube paints. Solid black is a painter's black. That solid black is an HD color that's re-put into bones. It's made with blue and brown, so it makes a more complex black. A lot of painters like it a lot better than pure black, but because it's got different pigments in it already, it's not as good for mixing. When you're mixing colors and you want a true result, it's always better to use as close to single pigments as you can. Otherwise, you're going to get a weird result, and you're going to be like, wait, I mixed this, this, and this. I should get this result, but it's because there's extra pigments in there. And then the black for bones, dragon black, is different again. It's a colder black. It actually shifts much more blue-violet than the other black. I just answered your question, Effie. I'm actually going to do a PDF on this, about the various sorts of black in MSP and close to blacks, and how they're different, because they all are different. And the reason for that is not because I'm trying to annoy you. It's actually because I'm trying to keep you from buying the same thing with a different name on it. So when I created all those blacks, I essentially created them with specific ideas in mind, like the painter's black, right? Everybody really likes to have kind of a black that's a little bit more complicated, so it's not just as flat. And that's thus why solid black was made, you know? And then I thought I wanted a really cold black for shading. And so because of that, if you have different bottles of black, they are actually different. They can be used in different ways, their utility. Otherwise, if I just like made 15 different blacks, then, you know, you guys would be paying extra for extra bottles of the same thing with a different name. Besmara is different. It's a little bit, when you get to licensed stuff, then usually it's just like a difference of the amount of pigment or a difference of the base or something like that makes it different. Like in the different whites, that's the variance. Like you need white to be white, and you can't pull many little things with it like you can with black, where you can hide other colors in black and still have it look black. So white is usually a question of what base we're using and how much pigment we're using, and varying amounts of titanium white pigment and then varying types of bases will give you slightly different whites. No, because it's all formula stuff, Mighty Garrett. So we're not gonna, Reaper is very, very tight about keeping their formulas confidential. We don't really want to out that. I can talk about it in general terms on the stream, but we're not gonna put it in writing or draw your attention to it. If you want to know, ask. That's part of why I do this stream, so you can ask these questions. Yeah, it's all in Anne's head. Well, and it's on the paint formula sheets too. But yeah, I mean, what it comes down to though, guys, is that you really don't need the color notes on those sheets, because it's still black, right? It's got maybe a little bit more complexity and lower pigments, and you might have problems if you're trying to do like, you know, like pure mixes, like palette painting type stuff. But not too much. It's going to make a slight difference, but it's just not as good as for mixing as pure black. But none of it is going to screw you up, right? And that's why we don't tell you about it. Some of people already know this stuff. Some people figure it out when they add white to their dragon black, and it goes a little bit like, you know, almost indigo. You know, it's a much colder black. So you find out through experimentation. Most companies aren't even going to tell you this much, you know? So if you, I understand that you like more info, but, you know, you've pretty much got all the info there, and then, you know, I can do a PDF about it, and then you'll have it, you know, if you're on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/paintingbig. I think I've got that on for maybe, I don't know, I'm doing the Dungeon Dwellers these days on the PDFs, so I don't want to interrupt that any more than necessary. I already interrupted it once for the Color Wheel one, But yeah, the blacks, different sorts of blacks are definitely on my radar for the $5 tier. Haha. No, the paint numbers are definitely on the formula sheets. Otherwise, Sadie would be in real trouble. But yes, all right. I love how those sharp shadows look like they're really being cast by the crystals. I keep looking at them and going, "Where's my light source that's casting those?" And I'm like, "Oh, I painted those on." So silly. Oh, and also I'm painting on shadows like this. It part of what makes these look real is actually the glaze that I did, the green glaze, where it kind of makes them a little bit more subtle, and so it doesn't look like I've just painted on little triangles. It looks more like it's a real shadow. So yeah. I could re-engineer anything, but I they don't really need me at this point. I mean, if they did a brand new paint line, I'd love to come and help with it, but I feel like I gave you guys a lot of great paints over the years, when it comes down to it. So thanks, Mighty Garrett. I'm glad you like my Patreon. I put a lot of oomph into it. I'm putting more oomph into it today and work on a video. Keep working on a video for you guys. For $10 tier. Gotta do some smooth skin tones on a bigger model. We're actually going to use the model that I was streaming. So I'm going to use this one. She's a 54 millimeter, so she's bigger. We have more room to mess up. Room to mess up means we learn more, right? Just gonna make these areas a little more rounded. Remember, you want the shape of your highlight to emulate the shape of the surface. So this is a more rounded little bunch of muscle, and it had a very straight, flat highlight. I wanted to make it a little more rounded. Same with this guy over here. It's very streaky and flat. It doesn't look very organic, so I want to kind of get a little bit more. Might need to bring in my shadow color and round it out a little bit. Make it a little less. There we go. Make it a little softer. More rounded because it's more of an oval area. And I need a little bit more muscle there. So yeah, so we're past 11. Here I was like, oh, I've got to fill some more time, so let's work on some other stuff. And now we're way past. So Justin, who is out there to raid today? Anybody fun?
Well, let's see here.
Kiri's got tail signs. So guess what, guys? I'm going to call it really fast. I love you all. Please come back tomorrow morning and see me again. Dog tail sign.
We got Zambies.
We got Zambies? Pardon me. There we go.
Yeah, we got Zambies. Well, tell Miss Zambies that we said hi. Spread the Reaper love. I think she likes our emotes. So make sure to spam plenty of those when you guys get in there. And keep being awesome. Don't forget it's Thursday. It's a busy day, guys. We have Painting Platinum here in about 2 hours. And then we have Reaper Live tonight at 6 p.m. Central. So whole full day full of stuff. Tomorrow's going to be full too, actually. But thank you guys very much, and we will see you later.